I think we saw Keir Starmer kind of put on another persona. Like it was, I've written today, it was like no more Mr. Nice Guy. And he's clocked up quite a few personas now. So you've had the sort of sheriff during the riots, like I'm going to lock them all up and I'm going to be Mr. Tough. We've had the statesman. You had then this week at this event, you had a sort of Boris Johnson type. Oh, I don't like the naysayers and the blockers. That was like a line from a Boris Johnson speech. And then you had a bit of kind of Rishi Sunak with, well, here are my pledges. And, you know, one insider said to me, oh, he was like cosplaying Boris and Rishi Sunak this week.
It is worth saying that just a few months ago, we sat here talking about the complete catastrophic Conservative Party Prime Ministerial.
Keir Starmer's political career is rapidly collapsing, and it is happening with such amazing speed that even the most cynical observers cannot remain indifferent. His carefully constructed image of an honest and incorruptible politician, which seemed unshakable, begins to crack at the seams in front of the whole country. Shocking evidence is surfacing about plans to raise taxes by a whopping £40 billion, and it's causing a real shock. Stay tuned to analyze that critical moment, when Starmer, losing his composure in front of the camera, demonstrated the disappointment of a leader whose tricks no longer work. When Keir Starmer became leader of the Labour Party, he presented himself as the saviour that British politics desperately needed. But now, his true face is beginning to show, and this is causing alarm and bewilderment for many. How did it happen?
Record. They changed prime ministers like even I changed my shoes. And
Didn't know what you were going to say.
No, my shoes. So they, in other words, it's
You
true.
only had 5 pairs of shoes in
Keir
14
Starmer
years.
may very well be demonstrating different facets to his one prime ministerial man that he is.
Yes.
But the Conservatives changed them so many times, the head was spinning.
Starmer promised a new era of honesty and integrity, in stark contrast to Boris Johnson's tumultuous and scandalous reign. Many voters were looking forward to Starmer's appearance, hoping for a change. His carefully crafted image as a worthy alternative quickly gained popularity, like a ray of hope in a murky political landscape. His experience as a former Attorney General gave his statements about honesty additional credibility, and he confidently stated his commitment to transparency and accountability. This especially touched the heart of people who were tired of political ambiguity and deception. At first, it seemed that his strategy was really working. Polls showed an increase in confidence in Starmer's leadership, and many voters sincerely believed that he would fulfill his promises. It was a real breath of fresh air in a world full of cynicism and disappointment. His promise not to raise taxes, in particular, resonated with the working class, which was suffering from rising living costs and was looking for at least some hope for a better future. But, as is often the case in politics, his initial enthusiasm began to fade.
We're not going to be raising tax on working people, so that means no increase in income tax, in national insurance and in VAT.
It's interesting actually, I notice how he looks down all the way, so he's reading off a sheet which I hadn't picked up before. Oh, to have that bit of paper.
None of our plans require tax rises over and above the ones we've set out.
So you can say now there will not be an increase in council tax?
Look, Nick, what I'm not going to do is sit here...
Is not say that. That's what you're not going to do. We can see that clearly, Keir.
Every time you say, we're not going to raise VAT, we're not going to raise it, and everybody says, what about council tax? You say, well, I honestly can't. You know what people are thinking. You're a bright bloke. Council tax will go up.
It was absolutely staggered there when I told him he was a bright bloke.
None of our plans require a tax rise.
Will it go up or when to go up, Sir Keir?
None of our plans require a tax rise. No, Nick, because I do need to explain this.
I think you've had your time, respectfully.
And then he was off to a Taylor Swift concert, so he couldn't hang about.
Skepticism began to grow among supporters and opponents. Some of the supporters of the Labour Party began to question whether Starmer's centrism betrayed the core values of the party, and Conservative critics, in turn, described him as a man devoid of charisma and strength. Over time, cracks began to appear in his carefully constructed image. The leadership style, which was once praised for its calmness and hesitation, began to be perceived as indecision and hesitation. Political positions that initially seemed clear became increasingly vague and confusing under scrutiny. The first signs of public discontent began to appear when Starmer tried to take a consistent opposition position towards the government's actions in various crises. The voters, who were initially fascinated by his promises of honesty and accountability, began to feel deeply disappointed. The gap between Starmer's high-flown rhetoric and the harsh reality of political leadership was becoming more and more apparent. As we will see, this growing frustration is about to reach a critical point, and the carefully crafted image of Saint Keir begins to crack at the seams.
Your argument is we've fundamentally misunderstood Keir Starmer.
His messianic streak is about my destiny is to rebuild the country. That's going to be very, very difficult, and it's going to annoy lots of groups of people around the country. He's going to upset, I suspect, quite a lot of people relying on selling capital for their income because there's going to be increasing capital gains tax. He's going to upset people who want to cascade their wealth down to their children and their children's children. I think there will be inheritance tax changes. Eventually they will upset people in the south of England because they're going to revalue council tax. And it desperately needs revaluation. But the impact of that will be, in effect, a transfer of resources from the richer parts of the south to the Midlands and the north of England and beyond into Wales. And that's absolutely essential, but will offend people. So I think there are lots of big fights to come. And my biggest worry about Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, I don't think they have run towards the arguments they really needed to have run towards and won to give themselves the preparation for what they're going to have to do in office.
The situation had reached a critical point, and a real $40 billion bomb was about to explode, threatening Keir Starmer's political future. Do you remember that shocking news about $40 billion? This is not just a metaphor, it is a reality that has shaken the foundations of British politics. The Labour Party under his leadership abandoned the tax increase plan, which caused a real furore and shock among voters. How could a man who swore not to introduce new taxes justify such a huge increase? This question highlights how quickly and unpredictably the political situation can change. The news of Labour's plan to raise taxes by $40 billion hit the public like a devastating tsunami, instantly washing away Starmer's carefully constructed image. The reaction of the media and the public was swift and merciless. Social networks were filled with angry accusations of betrayal. Journalists who once admired Starmer's promises of honesty and integrity now portrayed him as just another politician who could not be trusted. The contrast between Starmer's tax plan and his earlier manifesto promises was striking and shocking. All assurances of financial responsibility and protection of the interests of the working class had disappeared, leaving behind only ashes of hope and disappointment.
Starmer with that sense of under promise, over deliver. It will. I mean, if he was making the great speeches, it would be, can we do it? Probably not. Ask not what your country can do for you, for fear of disappointment. And this is relentless management. It's only the art of the possible. I'm sure if you sent a Christmas card from Keir Starmer, it would say, wishing you a responsible Christmas and a fully costed New Year.
Previous promises were replaced by huge tax increases, which seemed to be directed against the people whom Starmer swore to protect. When the details of this increase became known, it became obvious that the main financial burden would fall on the shoulders of the workers. And this caused a real storm of indignation. Families who were already struggling with the cost of the living crisis are now facing the threat of even greater budget cuts. This has been a devastating blow to them that has knocked the ground out from under their feet. Small business owners who once hoped for support from Labour have found themselves facing rising operating costs and uncertainty, adding to their stress and anxiety, making them feel left to fend for themselves.
We're definitely going to be in recession, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And they talk about this 22 million black hole that they've found. But if they really want to be honest with it, evidently 9 billion of that is down to pay rises for the civil service. So you know, they're all looking after their own type of people, and I just feel Labour now are just too much, you know what I mean? Would I put Starmer and, was it Reeves and the other one, Rain or something, in charge of my business? The answer's no. I mean, but they're running the country.
You wouldn't have Keir Starmer running, you know, running your bath by the sounds of it.
Well, I wouldn't put him in charge of a broom, if I'm being honest with you. And that's being polite.
Yeah.
You know, they're just absolutely, they're not for the working people. They're all for giving money for people that don't contribute nothing.
Political opponents did not miss the opportunity to take advantage of this disaster. Rishi Sunak took advantage of the moment to sharply condemn the Labour government for betraying its promises, stressing that this budget had undermined the party's credibility and left people in turmoil and despair. But it was Nigel Farage who delivered the harshest criticism, calling Starmer a liar and claiming that public trust in the Labour government had been irreparably damaged. These words sounded like a verdict, and many began to wonder, how did it happen that hopes for change turned into deep disappointment and a sense of betrayal? What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you later.